Why would someone send a decades-old teddy bear across the city, with no return address, no note, and no need for ID? It should have been a meaningless errand. Instead, it cracked open a box of family secrets no one was ready to face. It was already dark when Emily left the hospital, the city lights painting tired stripes of red and gold across the wet pavement. Her head ached. A double shift in the ER had worn her down, and all she wanted was tea, her pajamas, and silence. That's when her phone buzzed. "Hey, can you pick up a package for me? I totally forgot." Her husband Nathan sounded rushed. "I'm tied up here in Chicago. Just go to the address I texted and give them the pickup code. That's all. No explanation. No please or thank you. Just a code and an address." She didn't argue, he was out of town on business again, as usual. The warehouse was halfway across the city, tucked behind a chain-link fence near the riverfront. Inside, a bored young man sat behind a scratched-up counter. He didn't ask for her ID, didn't check anything but the number on her phone. "Here," he said, handing over a plain cardboard box. "You're good to go. No signature. No label. Just the box." Back home, her mother-in-law, Margaret, was helping Emily's 8-year-old son, Caleb, with a science project at the kitchen table. "Mom. What's that?" Caleb jumped off his chair. Emily placed the box on the counter. "Something your dad asked me to pick up." They opened it together. Inside, under layers of yellowing newspaper, was an old teddy bear. Its fur was flattened, the color of dust, with one missing eye and a crooked stitched smile. It looked like it had spent decades in a forgotten attic. Caleb lit up. "Can I keep him? He's so ugly, he's awesome." But Margaret had frozen. Her hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide with something between horror and disbelief. Emily glanced at her. "You okay?" Margaret stepped forward like she was seeing a ghost. Her hand trembled as she picked up the bear, then dropped it like it had bitten her. "That's," she whispered. "That's Nathan's. From when he was little." Emily's eyebrows shot up. "Seriously? This exact one? He never went anywhere without it. He called it Buddy. One day it just vanished. He was 5. We thought maybe it got lost at the lake house, or thrown out." Emily turned the bear over in her hands. Its stitching was unmistakably old. A faint, faded tag hung from one arm, an T written in nearly invisible ink. "But this was gone for over 30 years, Margaret said, visibly shaken. "How would it just show up now? In a box? With no note?" Emily stared at the bear. Her stomach turned. Her husband never mentioned the toy. Why now? Why like this? That night, as she tried to sleep, the bear sat on the bookshelf in the corner of her room. She couldn't stop looking at it. No one sends something like that without a reason. And Emily had a feeling this was only the beginning. The next morning, Emily woke up to the sound of rain tapping softly on the windows. Caleb was already in the living room, dragging the old bear across the hardwood floor. "I named him Hank," he said proudly. "Hank the survivor." Margaret stood in the kitchen, staring into her coffee like it might explain the past. Her face was pale, and she hadn't touched her toast. "Are you okay?" Emily asked. Her mother-in-law looked up, hesitated. "That bear. Buddy. Hank, whatever you want to call him. It wasn't just a toy to Nathan. He carried it through everything. First day of preschool. The flu that nearly put him in the hospital. He slept with it until he was 5. And then it vanished?" Margaret nodded slowly. "Just gone. We searched the lake house. The car. Everywhere. One day it was there, the next it wasn't." Emily hesitated. "Do you think, someone took it? I don't know, Margaret said. But I never forgot. Nathan cried for days. Emily tried to shake the unease from her chest. It was just a toy. A coincidence, maybe. But who had sent it? Why now? At work, the distraction didn't fade. Emily was an ER nurse, sharp, capable, focused. But that day, something kept her off balance. The oddness of the bear, the silence from Nathan, the way Margaret had looked like she'd seen a ghost. Midway through her shift, a wealthy man was brought in, mid-50s, pale, sweating, blood pressure plummeting. Initial symptoms looked like an allergic reaction, but Emily noticed something odd. The rash wasn't typical. She leaned in, checked the records again, and made a snap call. Get toxicology, she told the doctor. This isn't an allergy. It's poisoning. She was right. The man had ingested small amounts of digitalis, a substance found in heart medication, but deadly in high doses. He was stabilized in time. You may have saved his life, the attending told her later. Emily nodded. But her mind wasn't on the praise. It was on the bear. That evening, back at home, Margaret was still quiet. She hadn't left the kitchen all day. Her eyes flicked toward the bear every time Caleb carried it into view. Emily poured herself a glass of wine. You sure you're okay? Margaret finally said it. I don't think it's a coincidence. Emily froze. What do you mean? I think someone sent that bear, on purpose. To remind us. Emily stared at her. Remind us of what? Margaret didn't answer right away. There are things about Nathan's childhood, about that time, that I never told him. Things I hoped were long buried. Emily's voice dropped. You think this is a message? I think, Margaret said, her voice cracking, it's a warning. Emily couldn't stop thinking about Margaret's words. A warning. That night, she waited until everyone was asleep. Then she pulled the bear off the bookshelf and set it gently on the kitchen table. Under the glow of a small lamp, she examined it again. The fur was worn smooth in places, stiff in others. One ear was barely attached. But it was the tag that caught her eye, N.T., handwritten in faded blue ink. She flipped the bear over, pressed at the seams, and noticed a rough patch near the stomach. Something had been stitched up, long ago and poorly. With a delicate hand, she unpicked the old thread. Inside was a small crumpled photo, faded, curled at the edges. Emily unfolded it slowly. The image showed a young woman, holding a baby, standing beside a lake. The photo looked ancient, like something pulled from a forgotten drawer. On the back, in messy handwriting. For my sweet boy. I'm sorry I couldn't stay. Emily stared at it. Her pulse quickened. The handwriting wasn't Margaret's. And the woman didn't look like her either. She considered waking her mother-in-law right then, but instead she slid the photo into a drawer and went to bed. The next morning, Margaret was gone. Emily found a note on the counter. Taking a short trip. Please don't worry. I need to check on something. Back soon. M. Emily had never known her to disappear like that. She called Nathan, who was still out of town, and told him about the bear. Oh yeah, he said, sounding distracted. I used to have something like that. Weird that it showed up. That's all you have to say? I haven't thought about it in 30 years, M. Emily debated telling him about the photo, but something stopped her. Nathan didn't ask questions. Didn't seem interested. And she wasn't sure yet what she was holding. That evening, she found Caleb asleep on the floor next to the bear. He had tucked it under a blanket, treating it like a sacred thing. Emily carefully picked him up and carried him to bed. Just before turning off the light, her phone buzzed. A single message. Unknown number. He was never supposed to forget. Emily stared at the screen. No name. No reply option. Just those 6 words. Her blood turned cold. Margaret didn't return that night. Or the next. By day 3, Emily was anxious enough to start calling around, family friends, Nathan's uncle in Maine, even Margaret's church group. No one had seen her. No one knew she was gone. Then a new message arrived. She went looking for the truth. Let her find it. Same anonymous number. Still no way to reply. Emily called Nathan again. This time, she told him about the photo. What woman? What photo? She's holding a baby. By a lake. It was sewn into the bear. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. That's impossible. My mom said it was just a toy. Did she ever tell you anything about your birth? A scoff. Yeah, that I was a miracle. Took her years to get pregnant. Why? Emily chose her next words carefully. Have you ever seen baby pictures of you? From the hospital? With her in them? No. I don't think so. Another pause. Wait, what are you saying? I don't know yet. But someone wanted that bear to come back into your life. And whoever she is in the photo, she's not your mother. At least, not the one who raised you. Margaret finally called on the 4th day. She sounded different, breathless, unsteady. I hired a private investigator. Emily nearly dropped the phone. Wait, what? I needed answers. About the bear. About the past. His name is Roland Grant. He's discreet. I told him everything. Everything? Emily echoed. Margaret's voice trembled. Not everything. Not yet. But I told him enough. And he found something, Emily. Something that doesn't add up. What is it? Margaret hesitated, then said, there was another woman living with us, back then. When Nathan was a baby. Her name was Lily. Emily's heart skipped. Was she a nanny? She was hired help. Young. Sweet. But, things were complicated. She left suddenly. Said she couldn't stay. And what does this have to do with Nathan? Another long pause. I'm not sure he's really mine, Margaret whispered. Not by blood. Emily felt the floor shift beneath her. Margaret, what are you saying? I think I raised someone else's son. Emily sat on the edge of her bed, the phone still pressed to her ear, Margaret's last words echoing in her mind. I think I raised someone else's son. What do you mean? Emily finally asked, her voice a whisper. Margaret's voice cracked on the other end. I was never able to have children. We tried for years. IVF, adoption lists, everything. And then Lily came. Emily felt her chest tighten. She was young. 18, maybe 19. She moved in to help with the house, but she was quiet. Scared sometimes. One night, she came to me sobbing. She was pregnant. Was it your husband's? Emily asked. I don't know. I don't think so. She never said. But, a few months later, she had the baby. A little boy. And then, she left. Just like that? She handed me the baby and said she couldn't give him what he needed. That I could. And then she was gone. Emily stood and began pacing the room. So Nathan, he's not your biological son. No. And you never told him? I couldn't. I told him he was mine. That he was wanted. That he was a miracle. And I loved him, Emily. I still do. But now that bear is back. And that photo, God, I think that's Lily. Emily reached into the drawer where she had hidden the photo and looked at it again. The woman did have a kind of softness to her face, gentle eyes, long hair tucked behind her ears. She was young. Barely out of her teens. Why now? Emily asked. Why would someone send the bear now? That's what I asked Roland, Margaret said. He did some digging. Turns out Lily died. A few weeks ago. Cancer. She was living under a different name. Had another child later in life, a daughter. She's the one who mailed the bear. Emily froze. She has a daughter? Yes. Her name's Sarah. She found Lily's things after the funeral. The bear. The photo. A letter. A letter? She said Lily wrote it before she died. She wanted it delivered to the boy she left behind. Emily sat down again, stunned. So this isn't blackmail. Or a threat. No. It's her final message. That night, Emily finally told Nathan everything. The bear. The photo. The woman who raised him possibly not being his birth mother. He didn't take it well. You're saying my whole childhood was a lie? Emily tried to keep her voice steady. Not a lie. Just, not the whole truth. I don't want to talk about this anymore, he snapped. I don't care who sent the bear. It's the past. But Emily knew better. Some truths don't stay buried. And this one was clawing its way to the surface. Nathan didn't come home that night. Emily waited, checking her phone more times than she cared to admit, but his last text, "Need time to think," was hours old. She didn't know where he was. She didn't know if he was coming back. The next morning, Caleb asked, "Is Dad still on his trip?" Emily nodded. "He'll be back soon." She hated lying. But what else could she say? Your father might be spiraling after learning his entire identity might be built on a secret? While Caleb went off to school, Emily stayed home and called Roland Grant, the private investigator. His voice was gravelly, calm. "Margaret told me you might call. I need to know everything you found. No filters." There was a pause. Then, "Are you sitting down?" According to Roland, Lily had given birth under a different name in a small clinic that no longer existed. No official records. But an old midwife remembered it, an under-the-table arrangement. Lily paid in cash. No paperwork. No father listed. She stayed in town for a few months afterward, then disappeared. What Roland found next changed everything. She came back once, he said. About a year later. Tried to see the boy. Your husband. But Margaret turned her away. Emily's stomach flipped. She never told me that. I figured. Margaret begged her to leave it alone. Told her Nathan was happy, healthy, didn't need the chaos. Lily left without a fight. But she left that bear behind, asked Margaret to give it to him. Emily's mouth went dry. And she didn't? Nope. She packed it away. Probably couldn't bear the reminder. So the bear had waited. Silent. Stitched shut with a picture and a message no one wanted to read. Until now. Emily needed air. She walked to the park near their house, sat on a bench under the swaying maples. Her thoughts were spinning, barely keeping pace with the revelations. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, he doesn't know what you know. But you deserve the truth too. She stared at the screen, fingers frozen above the keyboard. Then another text followed. This time with a photo. Nathan. But he wasn't alone. He was in a restaurant, smiling at a woman across the table. Holding her hand. Emily zoomed in. It wasn't a business meeting. And it definitely wasn't Chicago. Her chest collapsed inward. Her husband hadn't just been hiding from his past. He'd been hiding from her. Emily didn't remember the walk home. Her feet moved, but her mind was stuck on the photo. Nathan, seated across from a woman with shoulder-length blonde hair, the two of them locked in the kind of moment that didn't need sound to be understood. Intimate. Familiar. Happy. The timestamp said yesterday. Nathan had told her he was in Chicago. But the restaurant was in their city. Less than 6 miles from their house. He came home late that night, quiet and disheveled, like someone trying to sneak into a life that no longer belonged to him. Emily stood in the hallway waiting. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't throw anything. She just said, her name. I want her name. Nathan looked like he'd aged a year in a day. Emily. I saw the photo. He froze. Then sighed. Laura. Her name's Laura. How long? Nathan rubbed his face, eyes avoiding hers. A few months. Maybe longer. A few months? Her voice cracked now. You've been lying to me while asking me to dig into your past, while I unravel your childhood, and all this time, you were with someone else? I didn't ask for this, he snapped. No, you just lied for it. He didn't deny it. Emily didn't sleep that night. She lay in Caleb's room, curled up next to her son as he dreamed about nothing and everything. The bear was still there, nestled beside his pillow like it had been his for years. A strange comfort. A quiet witness. By morning, Emily had made up her mind. Nathan wouldn't just face the truth about his past. He would face the truth about his present too. She met with Roland in person. He handed her a file filled with documents, Lily's real name. Her hospital records. An obituary clipped from a small-town paper. And a letter, creased and water-stained but intact. To the boy I couldn't keep. You were never unloved. I never stopped thinking about you. I hope your life was full of warmth, laughter, and second chances. I hope you became the kind of man who gives love the way he receives it. This bear was the last thing I held you with. Maybe it will remember when I can't. Love always, Mom. Emily folded the letter carefully, hands trembling. She wasn't crying. Not yet. Because she wasn't done. She filed for divorce the following week. Quietly. Cleanly. Efficiently. She kept the house. She kept Caleb. And Nathan didn't fight her. It was like he had already left months ago. But she couldn't let go of one thing. The bear. It wasn't just a toy anymore. It was a bridge. A reminder. A warning. And now, maybe a symbol of something else. Something worth rebuilding from the ashes. The letter sat on Emily's nightstand for days. Every time she looked at it, she felt like she was staring at a living memory, a mother's goodbye wrapped in ink and regret. It deserved a response. So she called the number Roland had given her. Lily's daughter. Her name was Sarah. They agreed to meet in a quiet cafe near the lake, halfway between their homes. Emily arrived first. Sarah showed up 15 minutes late, wearing a raincoat and nerves. You look like him, Sarah said softly after they sat down. Your son, I mean. The photos you sent, he has the same eyes my mom did. Emily smiled faintly. He's not mine by blood, but he's mine in every other way. They ordered tea. Neither of them touched it. Sarah slid a photo across the table, one Emily hadn't seen before. Lily holding a toddler, somewhere sunny, laughing so hard the image nearly shimmered. She always said he was the one good thing she did. Even when everything else went wrong. Emily touched the photo gently. She didn't do wrong. She gave him a life. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to meet him. She wrote so many letters over the years. She kept them all in a box. Some she never sent. She was protecting him, Emily said. She was afraid, Sarah replied. Afraid she'd ruin him. Emily nodded. She didn't. They sat in silence for a long time before Sarah asked, "Do you think he'd want to meet me?" Emily considered it. Right now? Probably not. But one day? Maybe. Sarah gave a sad smile. I'd like that. Meanwhile, Nathan stayed quiet. He signed the divorce papers. He didn't fight for custody. He sent Caleb a birthday card, but didn't show up. Margaret, however, surprised Emily. She came over one morning, no call, just a knock at the door. She looked older. Softer. I spent most of my life lying to protect a story, she said, stepping into the foyer. But I don't want to do that anymore. Emily nodded. Margaret pulled a small box from her purse. Inside were more photos. Baby Nathan. A note from Lily. Even a piece of paper with a name scrawled on it. Benjamin Hale. Father, unknown. I think it's time we find out who he really was, Margaret said. Emily agreed. That afternoon, she got another message. But this one wasn't anonymous. It was from Adam Warren. The wealthy businessman she'd treated in the ER, the poisoning case. Hi Emily. I owe you more than I can ever repay. I've been thinking a lot about what you did for me, and what you said about truth. Would you like to get coffee sometime? No pressure. Just conversation. Emily stared at the screen. She smiled. Because maybe the past was done revealing itself. And maybe something new was waiting. Emily hadn't gone on a first date in over a decade. But when she walked into the small cafe downtown, the same one where she'd once met Sarah, something felt different. Lighter. Like she was finally walking towards something instead of away. Adam Warren stood as she approached, still dressed in a tailored coat, but this time with softer eyes. You came, he said, a smile tugging at the edge of his lips. I almost didn't, Emily replied honestly. It's been a year. I know, he said. Sometimes it takes the worst moments to see what needs to change. They talked for an hour. About work. About his recovery. About the betrayal he'd faced, the poisoning hadn't been an accident. His wife had been slipping him doses over months, trying to trigger a heart issue that would look like natural causes. I was going to leave her, he said quietly. She knew it. And she wanted the money more than the marriage. Emily shook her head. That's horrific. He studied her. But you saved me. And I think that means something. It did. She just wasn't sure what yet. Later that week, Emily met Margaret and Roland to go over the last piece of the puzzle, the man named Benjamin Hale. I tracked him down, Roland said. He's retired. Lives alone. Never married. No other kids. Does he know about Nathan? Margaret asked, her voice barely steady. No. But he might have suspected. Lily worked for him. There were rumors, but nothing confirmed. Margaret looked pale. Do you think I should tell him? Emily answered, that's up to you. But if we're going to heal from this, no more secrets. Not for you. Not for Caleb. Not for anyone. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Margaret said, I'll write him. The divorce was finalized. Emily got full custody of Caleb. Nathan didn't protest. He barely looked her in the eye when he signed the final papers at the courthouse. I didn't mean for it to end this way, he said, voice hoarse. Emily looked at him, not with hatred, but with clarity. You chose every step of it. I just chose to stop following. He nodded. Do you hate me? No, she said. I just don't believe in you anymore." That night, Emily tucked Caleb into bed. He was older now, emotionally, wiser in a way no child should be at 8. He clutched the old bear in one arm and looked at her sleepily. "Is Buddy really Dad's?" Emily smiled softly. "He was. But now he's yours. Even if he's old." "Especially because he's old," she whispered. "He's been through a lot. Just like us." Caleb smiled and drifted off to sleep. Emily stood in the doorway for a long time, watching the boy, the bear, the peace that had finally settled into their home. Tomorrow, she'd write back to Adam. And maybe say yes. Not because she needed saving, but because she was finally ready to let someone in. The envelope arrived on a quiet Thursday morning. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a single page, folded with care. Margaret read it alone on the front porch. She didn't cry, not at first. She just sat with it, her hands trembling as the words from Benjamin Hale settled over her like soft rain. He remembered Lily. Said she was kind. Fragile. Beautiful in a way that made people want to fix her. He hadn't known she was pregnant. But he wrote that if Nathan was his son, he hoped he had grown up with love. Margaret whispered aloud, "He did." She called Emily later that day. "I'm going to visit him. Just to say thank you. And I'll tell Nathan, when he's ready." Emily said, "That sounds right." It was the first time Margaret had spoken like a woman untethered by fear. Emily met Adam again. And again. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner into afternoons at the park with Caleb. They didn't label anything. But Emily caught herself smiling more. Laughing, sometimes. Caleb liked him. That was what mattered most. One day, as they all walked by the lake, Caleb asked, "Did Buddy ever belong to her?" Pointing at Sarah, who had joined them that afternoon. Emily looked at the bear in his arms and smiled. "He belonged to all of us, I think. At different times." Sarah crouched beside Caleb. "Your grandma Lily wanted him to keep you safe. Did he?" "I think he did," Sarah said. "He brought us all together." By summer, the house felt different. Not just because Nathan's absence had settled in like clean air, but because joy was finally allowed back in. The living room was full of board games and snack bowls and Caleb's drawings. Margaret came by more. Sarah sometimes brought old photos Lily had saved, and they'd sit around the table like women stitching together a shared history. Emily found herself reaching for the bear sometimes at night, not for comfort, but out of gratitude. For what it had survived. For what it had carried. Not everything could be repaired. But some things could be honored. On the anniversary of Lily's death, Emily and Sarah scattered a handful of wildflowers at the lake where the photo was taken, the one sewn into the bear's belly. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Lily had already said everything that mattered. You were never unloved. The parcel that started it all now sat on a shelf in Caleb's room. Inside was Buddy, freshly mended, stitched back together not to look new, but to show he had endured. Some scars were worth keeping. Because they told the truth.